Dr. Eckner, are you ready to give your testimony?
I am.
Please swear the doctor in.
With regard to the mysterious circumstances surrounding this occurrence, we must, of course, give due consideration to all the possibilities. However, starting with what is known, we can all agree that the fire first appeared in the upper stern section of the ship. From this, we may conclude that there must have been an abnormal buildup of free gas in the rear section. The gas, which we presume to have been there, must have been ignited by some spark. It has been mentioned that lightning might have caused this ignition. However, it has been stated by witnesses that the fire appeared as a wave motion on the top of the ship. That, in my opinion, could not have been caused by lightning. Also, there were no sightings of lightning near the ship. I believe it was ignited not by an electrical spark, but by a static spark. Let me explain. A thunderstorm front had passed the station just prior to the order for the ship to land. If one, however, examines more closely the weather for registration of wind currents, temperatures on the thermometer, then one must recognize that this first storm front must have had a smaller, lighter one following it. And if this was not noticed at the field, that is quite natural, because attention was focused on the landing maneuver and the handling of the ship. I would say, therefore, in all certainty, that there was a small tail end to the first thunderstorm, creating the conditions for static sparks to occur. If we accept this explanation, it may appear strange that ignition did not occur immediately the landing lights were dropped, because it would have been then that the airship had been burst when the ropes hit the ground. But as we know, the ignition took place 4 minutes after the landing lights were dropped. For this, I believe there is a very simple explanation. The landing lines would have been very dry and therefore poor conductors. Slowly, however, they became dampened by the fine rain which was still falling. Thus, the potential difference between the ship and the ground was slowly equalized. The Hindenburg would have become like a giant kite close to the storm clouds. The potential difference between the ship and the overlying air masses would have been sufficient to generate static sparks. This was not lightning, but a small static spark, enough to ignite free hydrogen. I will now refer again to accumulation of gas in the after part of the ship. I am convinced that a leak must have occurred to cause such abnormal accumulation of gas in the rear section. My assumption is confirmed by a remarkable observation made by one of the witnesses. He observed in the rear upper part of the outer cover a peculiar flutter which appeared as if gas was escaping and rising at that point. If the question was put to me as to the cause of such a leak, I could only make to myself the following explanation. The ship had proceeded in a sharp turn to the approach for its landing.
The wind has turned direction to southwest. Rather hard to south.
This would have generated extremely high tension in the rear of the ship, and especially in the center sections close to the stabilizing fins, which are held in place by shear wires. Under this extreme tension, caused by the hard turn to starboard, I could imagine that one of these wires was then broken, and that broken wire caused the rip in one of the hydrogen cells. Hydrogen gas then escaped from the torn cell and filled up the space between the cell and the outer cover in the rear of the ship, which is why the ship sank in the rear. Finally, this accumulated quantity of gas was ignited by a static spark. Everything apparently occurred in the last 5 or 6 minutes, that is, during the sharp turn preceding the landing maneuver.
Were there any other possibilities you considered?
From a purely speculative standpoint, there are a number of possibilities. One could imagine, for instance, that someone had placed an internal machine inside the ship and brought it to destruction in that manner. But such a machine would have to be installed in Frankfurt. Not only is there no evidence for such a possibility, it is a theoretical consideration to which I myself cannot assent.
Thank you, Doctor.
My friendship with Commander Rosenthal was never the same. He wanted to believe it was sabotage, not human error, that destroyed the Hindenburg. I believed it was an urgency to stick to a tight schedule. Rosenthal had pulled the ship in, and Captain Fuss had made the tight turn under pressure from Ernst. I believed that the wire would not have snapped if they had not all been under pressure to be punctual, to keep to a schedule. That is the way of the world. Schedules, timekeeping, money. We took pride in our 100% safety record, but I think that business underestimated the natural laws of science.
Edgar comes to a conclusion, not without great deliberation, and it is not kind to Captain Pruss, Commander Rosenthal, and Ernst Lehmann, because what Eckner sees is the landing of a ship that's badly out of trim, rushed with a very tight turn toward the end, and the possibility that in making that tight turn and that landing, the ship could have been compromised.
But in his heart, Eckner knew he was the one person who could have averted the tragedy. The deaths of 36 people were down to a decision he had made 8 years before. He had a secret that he could never reveal.